There are 16 characters named Tom in this novel. There are 35 students in this class. There are a couple of options. There are a few apples on the tree, aren't there? There are a few boats on the lake. There are a few hotels on Park Street. There are a few houses around. There are a lot of bad people in the world. There are a lot of beautiful places in Japan. There are a lot of big changes coming soon. There are a lot of books in the library. There are a lot of children in the park. There are a lot of eggs in the basket. There are a lot of English books in this library. There are a lot of fires in the winter. There are a lot of fish in that lake. There are a lot of fish in the pond. There are a lot of French books in the library. There are a lot of gifts under the Christmas tree. There are a lot of good restaurants in Boston. There are a lot of idiots here tonight. There are a lot of new buildings here now. There are a lot of parks in London. There are a lot of people here today. There are a lot of people here. There are a lot of people in the waiting room. There are a lot of people waiting outside. There are a lot of people who want to talk to Tom. There are a lot of places to see around here. There are a lot of places to visit in Boston. There are a lot of problems we can't avoid. There are a lot of roses in this garden. There are a lot of sheep in the pasture. There are a lot of tall buildings in Boston. There are a lot of things I have to do before tomorrow. There are a lot of things I have to do this week. There are a lot of things I have to do. There are a lot of things I need to do before I can go home. There are a lot of things I need to tell you. There are a lot of things I want to ask you. There are a lot of things I want to do today. There are a lot of trees around the pond. There are a lot to choose from. There are a number of nice restaurants near here. There are all sorts of people here. There are also other choices. There are also privacy concerns. There are always a lot of questions. There are always choices. There are always exceptions. There are always options. There are always questions. There are at least 500 students here. There are better ways to do that. There are challenges. There are cherry trees on both sides of the street. There are conditions. There are consequences. There are differences. There are discrepancies. There are enormous risks. There are exceptions to every rule. There are exceptions, however. There are exceptions. There are 15 people here, counting the guests. There are 50 states in the United States. There are 4 people in my family. There are fresh tracks in the snow. There are going to be a lot of questions. There are going to be consequences. There are grants available. There are huge snakes on this island. There are hundreds of books in his study. There are just the 2 of us here. There are just too many people. There are just 2 of us. There are limits to my knowledge. There are limits. There are lots of clouds in the sky today. There are lots of presents underneath the Christmas tree. There are lots of things for us to think about. There are lots of things to do. There are lots of things we could do to help those families. There are lots of things we've got to fix. There are many active volcanoes in Japan. There are many bad people in the world. There are many beautiful parks in Boston. There are many benefits to being beautiful. There are many birds in this forest. There are many books in my room. There are many books on this subject. There are many children whose mothers go out to work. There are many craters on the moon. There are many different strategies we could try. There are many different ways of doing this. There are many dishonest people in the world. There are many factors. There are many fish in this lake. There are many good restaurants in Boston. There are many innocent men in jail. There are many interesting people in the world. There are many kinds of coffee. There are many modern buildings around here. There are many new programs to watch this spring. There are many old buildings in our neighborhood. There are many other things we could be doing. There are many others. There are many parks in Boston. There are many parks in our town. There are many people trying to buy houses. There are many people who don't speak French. There are many pictures in this book. There are many possible answers to that question. There are many possible explanations. There are many postcards in this store. There are many problems for them to deal with. There are many problems to solve. There are many wrights on the ship. There are many rivers on that island. There are many rooms. There are many shades of gray. There are many such birds in the park. There are many tall buildings in that town. There are many theories about the origin of life. There are many things that I don't understand very well. There are many urgent matters to attend to. There are many urgent things to do. There are many videos on YouTube of people doing stupid things. There are many wild animals around here. There are many wild animals in this area. There are many words that I don't understand. There are many words with meanings I don't know. There are millions of stars in the universe. There are minor differences. There are monsters everywhere. There are more important things in life. There are more important things we should be doing right now. There are more of those in the drawer. There are more practical choices. There are 9 girls and 3 boys in the library. There are no beaches in this area. There are no breakthroughs. There are no classes today. There are no coincidences. There are no comments yet. There are no cops around. There are no direct flights to Boston from here. There are no distractions. There are no drugs here. There are no exceptions to this rule. There are no exceptions. There are no fish in this lake. There are no fish in this pond. There are no further details. There are no girls in our class. There are no health risks. There are no hidden service charges. There are no jobs here. There are no knives. There are no limits. There are no loopholes. There are no more bullets in my gun. There are no more bullets. There are no options. There are no other alternatives. There are no problems to report. There are no problems. There are no quick fixes. There are no restrooms in this building. There are no restrooms. There are no roses without thorns. There are no rules without exceptions. There are no secrets between us. There are no special rules about what clothes we have to wear. There are no spoons. There are no stars in the sky tonight. There are no stars tonight. There are no strings on this guitar. There are no survivors. There are no dolls. There are no trees on Tom's property. There are no victims. There are no wheels on this suitcase. There are no witnesses. There are no women here. There are no wrong answers. There are none so blind as those who will not see. There are noticeable differences between the two. There are now 3 cars parked in front of your house. There are only a couple of pieces left. There are only just a few passengers on that train. There are only 3 cookies left. There are only 3 days left. There are only 3 girls in the class. There are only 3 left. There are only 3 of them. There are only 3 options. There are options. There are other options. There are other people waiting. There are other ways to do this. There are over 15 different kinds of pies. There are people everywhere. There are people here who need your help. There are people in the park. There are people out there. There are people who are afraid of spiders. There are people who don't like me. There are people who don't like Tom. There are people who seldom speak unless they're spoken to. There are plenty more of those. There are plenty of books in his study. There are plenty of fish in the sea. There are plenty of fish in this river. There are plenty of idiots in the world. There are probably chickens around. There are problems. There are risks. There are rules. There are 7 days in a week. There are 7 of us. There are several choices. There are several exits. There are several options. There are several possible explanations. There are several reasons. There are several theories. There are signs everywhere. There are similarities. There are so many places I want to visit. There are so many stars in the sky I can't count them all. There are some apples in that box. There are some apples in the basket. There are some apples on the table. There are some books on the desk. There are some boys in the park. There are some cookies in the jar. There are some cookies under the table. There are some details to iron out. There are some differences. There are some good apples in the basket. There are some grapes in the refrigerator. There are some magazines in my room. There are some obvious concerns. There are some people singing in the lobby. There are some people who think it's a bad idea. There are some police cars parked outside. There are some problems. There are some sandwiches here. There are some things even you can't buy. There are some things that you should never try doing. There are some things we want you to see. There are some things you can't control. There are some tomatoes in the refrigerator. There are still a lot of dishes on the table. There are still a lot of things that have to be done. There are still a lot of things to do. There are still empty seats. There are still many stupid laws that are on the books. There are still many unanswered questions. There are still problems. There are still some problems. There are still some things we need to do. There are subtle differences between the two pictures. There are survivors. There are teeth marks on the end of that pencil. There are 30 names on the list. There are 3 buttons. There are 3 campgrounds in this area. There are 3 days left till Christmas. There are 3 empty rooms, however, we can't use any of them. There are 3 exceptions. There are 3 men trapped in the cave. There are 3 of them. There are 3 of us. There are 3 options. There are 3 suitcases near the door. There are 3 survivors. There are 3 tables in the storeroom. There are 3 Toms in my class. There are 3 unaccounted for. There are times when a man must fight. There are too many of us to fit into one taxi. There are too many people in that rowboat. There are too many people in this room. There are too many rules. There are too many things to do. There are too many tourists. There are too many unanswered questions. There are 12 months in a year. There are 2 police officers at door. There are 2 sides to every question. There are 2 sides to every story. There are 2 slices of pizza for each person. There are various kinds of coffee. There are way too many people on this island. There are worse things than being alone. There aren't any bullets in this pistol. There aren't any fish in this pond. There aren't any options left. There aren't any problems. There aren't any restaurants around here. There aren't any rules. There aren't any signs that Tom has been here. There aren't as many trains at night. There aren't enough chairs in the conference room. There aren't that many. There aren't too many shops around here. There aren't very many apples left. There can be no compromise. There can only be one winner. There comes the bus. There could be another bomb. There could be consequences. There could be traffic. There didn't seem to be a problem. There doesn't seem to be anyone around. There doesn't seem to be anyone home. There don't seem to be any problems. There goes our bus. There goes the bell. There goes your ride. There has always been war and there always will be. There has been a compromise. There has been frustration. There has been progress made. There has been progress. There has probably been a mistake. There has to be a better way to do this. There has to be a key. There has to be a reason. There has to be a way. There has to be an explanation. There has to be another way to do this. There has to be something else we can do. There has to be something here. There has to be something that I can do. There has to be something that you can do. There has to be something we can do. There have been a lot of complaints about that policy. There have been a lot of complaints about the way Tom behaves. There have been exceptions. There have been hitches. There have been injuries. There have been no reports of casualties. There have been no reports of injuries. There haven't been any accidents recently. There haven't been any problems so far. There is a bank in front of the hotel. There is a bank in front of the station. There is a basket under the table. There is a big hole in your stocking. There is a big park near my school. There is a big park near our school. There is a bird here. There is a black sheep in every flock. There is a book on the desk. There is a bookstore in front of the department store. There is a bridge over the pond. There is a castle in the background of the picture. There is a cat under the bed. There is a certain amount of truth in what he's saying. There is a church near my house. There is a connection between smoking and lung cancer. There is a cookie under the table. There is a crowd of people on the street. There is a crowd of women around Tom. There is a cure. There is a desk in a corner of the room. There is a dictionary on the desk. There is a difference. There is a dragonfly on the ceiling. There is a fork missing. There is a good chance that he will win. There is a hole in his sock. There is a hole in your sock. There is a knife missing. There is a knock at the door. There is a lake in front of my house. There is a large clock near the top of the tower. There is a limit to everything. There is a little hope that he will succeed. There is a little time before the train departs. There is a long wait between trains. There is a lot of furniture in this room. There is a lot of money. There is a man at the door. There is a meeting tomorrow. There is a melon on the table. There is a nice park in the center of the town. There is a page missing from this report. There is a page missing. There is a pair of scissors on the desk. There is a parking lot behind the theater. There is a photo of Tom on Mary's desk. There is a place for Tom here. There is a police car parked outside our house. There is a pond in the middle of the park. There is a portrait of Tom Jackson on the wall. There is a post office close by. There is a problem. There is a public telephone on that corner. There is a reason that everybody hates Tom. There is a right time for everything. There is a risk. There is a school near my house. There is a skeleton in every closet. There is a spoon missing. There is a station in the center of the city. There is a stranger in front of the house. There is a threat of a storm. There is a time for everything. There is a toy shop in the neighborhood. There is a traffic jam on the highway. There is a very old temple in the town. There is a very strict rule forbidding smoking in bed. There is absolutely no way that I would go on a trip alone. There is almost no water in this bottle. There is always a next time. There is always heavy traffic here at this time of the day. There is always something to do. There is an alternative. There is an antidote. There is an apple on the desk. There is an apple on the table. There is an orange on the table. There is an urgent need for a new policy. There is an urgent need for a new system. There is an urgent need for affordable housing. There is an urgent need for better communication. There is an urgent need for blood donations. There is an urgent need for blood donors. There is an urgent need for clean energy. There is an urgent need for donations. There is an urgent need for drinking water. There is an urgent need for experienced pilots. There is an urgent need for food and water. There is an urgent need for good legal advice. There is an urgent need for improved living conditions. There is an urgent need for medical supplies. There is an urgent need for money. There is an urgent need for more doctors. There is an urgent need for more money. There is an urgent need for new ideas. There is an urgent need for peace talks. There is an urgent need for qualified teachers. There is an urgent need for revisions. There is an urgent need for shelter. There is an urgent need for social change. There is an urgent need for them to update their system. There is an urgent need for volunteers. There is an urgent need for water. There is another option. There is but one chance left. There is close relationship between supply and demand. There is going to be a storm. There is hope. There is indisputable proof that Tom is the thief. There is little chance of his winning. There is little food in the refrigerator. There is little furniture in my house. There is little hope of recovery. There is little hope of his recovery. There is little hope of his winning the election. There is little hope of success. There is little hope that she will come on time. There is little hope that they are alive. There is little, if any, hope of his being alive. There is more water than is needed. There is more. There is much more water in this lake now than in the past. There is no admission fee for children under 5. There is no air on the moon. There is no alternative. There is no ambiguity. There is no antidote. There is no beach in this area. There is no bus service after 9:30. There is no charge. There is no choice. There is no clock in my room. There is no connection between them. There is no connection. There is no door on this side of the building. There is no doubt in my mind that Tom didn't commit suicide. There is no doubt in my mind that Tom will win the election. There is no doubt. There is no dress code. There is no easy road to learning. There is no feeling in my toes at all. There is no fire without smoke. There is no food. There is no fool like an old fool. There is no honor among thieves. There is no hope left. There is no hope of his being alive. There is no hope of his being appointed. There is no hope of his recovery. There is no hope of success. There is no hope that he will come soon. There is no hurry. There is no life on the moon. There is no limit. There is no meat left in the fridge. There is no message. There is no more cheese left. There is no need for her to work. There is no need for him to work. There is no need for us to hurry. There is no one there. There is no other choice. There is no place like home. There is no proof that Tom committed that crime. There is no public transportation around here. There is no reason for you to feel inferior to anyone. There is no reason why he should resign. There is no rule without exceptions. There is no salt left. There is no schedule. There is no school today. There is no scientific basis for these claims. There is no significant difference. There is no smoke without fire. There is no telling what time he will come. There is no telling what will happen tomorrow. There is no third choice. There is no time to lose. There is no timetable. There is no use crying for help. No one will hear you. There is no water left in the bottle. There is no water. There is no way I'm letting you do this alone. There is no wind today. There is no wine in that bottle. There is not much difference between the two opinions. There is not much difference between the two. There is not much hope. There is not much possibility of his coming on time. There is nothing like the smell of roasted coffee. There is nothing to do but apologize. There is nothing to it. There is nothing wrong with him. There is nothing. There is one book here. There is one catch. There is one difference. There is one possibility. There is one problem. There is one solution. There is one thing I don't understand. There is one thing I want to ask. There is one thing that I don't understand. There is one vacancy. There is only one store on the whole island. There is plenty of food. There is silence. There is some wind. There is someone here. There is something else over here I want you to see. There is something else. There is something here. There is something important I want to discuss with you. There is something more. There is something we can do. There is something wrong with my car. There is something wrong. There is too much furniture in the house. There is yogurt in the fridge. There is your bag. There isn't a moment to lose. There isn't a moment to spare. There isn't a second to waste. There isn't any hope of his success. There isn't any help. There isn't any more time. There isn't any soap. There isn't anybody else who can do this. There isn't anybody else. There isn't anybody here. There isn't anybody in front of the main gate yet. There isn't anyone here but us. There isn't anyone in the room. There isn't anything else I can do. There isn't anything to celebrate. There isn't enough time. There isn't going to be a change. There isn't going to be an investigation. There isn't much butter left in the refrigerator. There isn't much furniture in my house. There isn't much left to say. There isn't much milk left in the bottle. There isn't much snow on the ground. There isn't much time left. There isn't much to say. There isn't much to tell. There isn't room for everyone. There isn't time for that. There isn't time to do that. There isn't time to explain. There isn't time. There it is. There may be a problem with that. There may be a problem with Tom. There may be a way. There may be another way. There may be hope for you yet. There may be more delays. There may be more questions later. There may be no solution to this problem. There may be nothing to worry about. There may be others. There may be some scars. There may be something there. There may be something wrong with you. There may have been a misunderstanding. There might be a problem with Tom. There might be casualties. There might be doctors there. There might be problems. There might have been a mix-up. There must be a better way of doing this. There must be a better way to do this. There must be a chance. There must be a mistake. There must be a pattern. There must be a solution to this problem. There must be a solution. There must be a spy among us. There must be a way we can convince Tom to work for us. There must be a way. There must be an explanation. There must be another way and we can help Tom. There must be another way out. There must be another way. There must be lots of places in Boston you haven't seen yet. There must be more. There must be some hope. There must be some kind of problem. There must be some mistake. There must be some way we can fix this. There must be something else to drink. There must be something else to eat. There must be something else we can do. There must be something in the box. There must be something in there. There must be something we can do. There must be something wrong with the engine. There must be something you can do. There must be a mistake. There never was any real danger. There really is no comparison. There really is no difference. There really weren't any challenges. There seemed to be only 3 of them. There seemed to be nothing to do. There seemed to be nothing left to do. There seemed to be nothing we could do. There seems no doubt about it. There seems to be a mistake. There seems to be a problem. There seems to be no need to go. There seems to be no one here. There seems to be no one waiting for us. There seems to be no one willing to help. There seems to be no way out of here. There seems to be no way out. There seems to be something out there. There seems to be something wrong. There should be a celebration. There should be more people here by now. There shouldn't be any more problems. There shouldn't be any problem. There shouldn't be any problems. There shouldn't be anyone here. There simply isn't enough money. There sure is a lot of traffic today. There used to be a big pine tree in front of my house. There used to be a bridge here. There used to be a castle on the hill. There used to be a church here. There used to be a large park here. There used to be a lot of frogs in this pond. There used to be a prison here. There used to be a store right here. There used to be an old temple here. There used to be big trees around the pond. There used to be some big trees around the pond. There was a bad smell. There was a banner on the wall that said Happy Birthday. There was a big fire last night. There was a big parade today. There was a birch tree in our garden, but it died. There was a bomb scare. There was a bowling trophy on the shelf above Tom's desk. There was a brass quintet playing in the lobby of the hotel. There was a bridge there. There was a brief silence. There was a bus in the way. There was a bus schedule on the wall. There was a cat on the table. There was a church here once. There was a complication. There was a convention last month. There was a country song playing on the jukebox. There was a crack in the mirror. There was a dead silence. There was a fight. There was a foul smell. There was a full moon last night. There was a girl in Tom's car. There was a great deal of snow last year. There was a handwritten note on the door. There was a hitch. There was a huge explosion. There was a large crowd in the park. There was a large crowd there. There was a light rain yesterday. There was a limousine waiting for Tom outside the hotel. There was a little milk left in the bottle. There was a long silence. There was a long wait. There was a lot going on. There was a lot of food left over from the party. There was a lot of sibling rivalry between Tom and his brother. There was a lot of snow last winter. There was a lot of snow last year. There was a lot of snow. There was a lot of tension between Tom and Mary. There was a lot of wind. There was a lot to eat. There was a lot to talk about. There was a loud explosion. There was a moment of confusion. There was a moment of silence. There was a place for you. There was a problem at school. There was a problem at the office. There was a problem with the thermostat. There was a problem. There was a sign saying, "Keep off the grass." There was a silence. There was a storm that night. There was a strong wind. There was a sudden change in the weather. There was a terrible accident on the freeway. There was a thick fog. There was a trial. There was a winner. There was a witness. There was absolute silence. There was absolutely no furniture in that room. There was absolutely nothing I could do to save Tom. There was absolutely nothing inside the room. There was absolutely nothing you could do about it. There was almost nothing in the room. There was an accident at the intersection. There was an accident. There was an awkward silence when he appeared. There was an eerie silence. There was an explanation. There was an explosion in the lab. There was an explosion. There was an uneasy silence. There was another guy with Tom. There was another one. There was another problem. There was applause. There was blood everywhere. There was blood on the floor. There was blood on Tom's face. There was blood on Tom's pillow. There was blood on Tom's shirt. There was blood. There was broken glass all over the floor. There was broken glass everywhere. There was complete silence. There was debris everywhere. There was gunshot residue on Tom's jacket. There was hardly any furniture in the house. There was just one problem with Tom's plan. There was looting. There was more than one. There was music. There was no advance warning. There was no avoiding Tom. There was no bathroom. There was no change. There was no contract. There was no damage reported. There was no damage. There was no delay. There was no doubt in my mind that Tom knew the answer. There was no emergency. There was no explosion. There was no hope in sight. There was no hot water. There was no hurry. There was no investigation. There was no light. There was no music. There was no need for you to do that. There was no need to do that. There was no need to talk. There was no need to worry. There was no negotiation. There was no one home. There was no one in the mine when it blew up. There was no one in the room besides Tom and Mary. There was no one in the room. There was no one inside the house. There was no one left but me. There was no one on the beach. There was no one there but Tom. There was no one there. There was no one to stop Tom. There was no other choice but to abandon the entire project. There was no other choice. There was no pain. There was no place to buy food. There was no plan whatsoever. There was no point remaining. There was no question about that. There was no reason to stay. There was no reported damage. There was no response. There was no sign of Tom anywhere. There was no sign of Tom. There was no signature on the contract. There was no sound. There was no stopping them. There was no stopping Tom. There was no structural damage. There was no swelling. There was no violence. There was no warning. There was no way in. There was no way of reaching Tom. There was no way out. There was no way to avoid what happened. There was no way to bring Tom back. There was nobody around. There was nobody in the garden. There was nobody in there. There was nobody there. There was nobody to ask. There was not a tree in sight. There was not enough fuel. There was nothing anybody could do. There was nothing else to do. There was nothing for me to do. There was nothing for me to drink. There was nothing for me to eat. There was nothing for us to do. There was nothing I could do for Tom. There was nothing I could do to change it. There was nothing I could do to help. There was nothing I could do. There was nothing in the box. There was nothing interesting on TV, so I turned it off. There was nothing left over. There was nothing left. There was nothing more to do. There was nothing more we could do. There was nothing really wrong with Tom. There was nothing secret about it. There was nothing that the doctors could do. There was nothing that Tom could do about it. There was nothing there. There was nothing to burn. There was nothing to celebrate. There was nothing to do but wait until the next morning. There was nothing to do. There was nothing to eat. There was nothing left to do. There was nothing to say. There was nothing to see. There was nothing to worry about. There was nothing Tom could do about it. There was nothing Tom could do to help Mary. There was nothing Tom could do. There was nothing Tom could have done. There was nothing we could do. There was nothing wrong with your car. There was nothing you could have done. There was nothing. There was nowhere to buy food. There was nowhere to hide. There was nowhere we could hide. There was one option left. There was one witness. There was only a little milk left in the bottle. There was only one bottle of beer in the fridge. There was only one left. There was only one problem. There was only one small problem. There was plenty going on. There was plenty of traffic. There was rotting. There was shattered glass everywhere. There was shouting and confusion everywhere. There was silence for a moment. There was silence. There was some 50s music playing on the radio. There was some meat left over. There was some mud on Tom's boots. There was someone else there too. There was someone else there. There was someone. There was something else. There was something going on. There was something I had to do. There was something in the air. There was something lying on the ground. There was something there. There was something. There was total silence. There wasn't even one book in the room. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. There wasn't a single book in the room. There wasn't a single shred of evidence. There wasn't a single survivor. There wasn't a soul in sight. There wasn't anybody in that room. There wasn't anybody there. There wasn't anyone in the park. There wasn't anyone in the room. There wasn't anyone there. There wasn't enough time to do everything that we needed to do. There wasn't enough time to do that. There wasn't enough time. There wasn't enough. There wasn't much else to do. There wasn't much else we could do. There wasn't much snow on the ground. There wasn't much traffic this morning. There wasn't much traffic. There wasn't time. There were 13 arrests. There were 30 guests. There were 30 members in all. There were 30 survivors. There were 30 witnesses. There were 300 protesters outside the police station. There were a few children in the room. There were a lot of empty seats the day I went. There were a lot of girls at the party. There were a lot of people at Tom's funeral. There were a lot of people in the park today. There were a lot of people there. There were a lot of rumors. There were about 1,000 people. There were about 30 of us. There were armed guards everywhere. There were as many as 500 people present. There were at least 100 people present. There were boxes everywhere. There were bullet holes in the windshield. There were enough. There were errors. There were flames everywhere. There were flies everywhere. There were flowers all around. There were footprints outside Tom's bedroom window. There were hardly any children in the park. There were hundreds of people outside. There were lots of happy kids in the swimming pool. There were lots of jobs. There were lots of people in the park today. There were lots of people in the stadium. There were lots of people. There were lots of them. There were many boys who were interested in dating Mary. There were many challenges. There were many children in the room. There were many others. There were many people at the funeral. There were many presents under the Christmas tree. There were many problems we had to solve. There were many rotten apples in the basket. There were many things that Tom wanted Mary to do that day. There were many things that Tom wanted to do before he died. There were mistakes made. There were more spectators than I had expected. There were no alternatives. There were no casualties. There were no clouds today. There were no computers in the office. There were no consequences. There were no customers in our bar after 10 p.m. that night. There were no customers, so we closed the shop early. There were no eyewitnesses. There were no fatalities. There were no forks. There were no jobs. There were no knives. There were no mistakes. There were no more apples in the box. There were no more blankets. There were no more questions. There were no mourners. There were no newspapers. There were no objections. There were no other choices. There were no other customers in the store. There were no other customers. There were no other injuries. There were no prior warnings. There were no problems to report. There were no problems. There were no railroads. There were no real problems. There were no seats left. There were no serious injuries. There were no solutions. There were no surprises. There were no survivors. There were not many women doctors in those days. There were only 3 left. There were only 3 of us. There were only 3 survivors. There were other suggestions. There were people everywhere. There were people on the street. There were people with injuries. There were plenty of choices. There were plenty of other people there. There were police everywhere. There were problems. There were questions. There were quite a few children in the park. There were quite a few interesting things to see. There were quite a few passengers on board. There were riots. There were risks. There were several reasons why we decided not to do that. There were so many things that reminded Tom of Mary. There were some burned-out structures along the road. There were some flowers there. There were some green beans on the plate. There were some ink stains on the cover of that book. There were some unexpected answers. There were some unexpected questions. There were subtle differences. There were survivors. There were 10 eggs in all. There were 3 coffee mugs on the table. There were 3 getaway cars. There were 3 letters. There were 3 men in the room. There were 3 men. There were 3 of them. There were 3 survivors. There were 3 uniformed police officers at the crime scene. There were times when Tom wished he hadn't married Mary. There were too many children in the pool. There were too many of them. There were too many people. There were 20 or so people there. There were 2 abstentions. There were 2 bridges. There were 2 cakes. There were 200 people in the room. There were 2 murders this month. There were 2 pieces of cake. There were witnesses. There weren't any witnesses. There weren't many boys at the picnic. There will always be some kind of problem. There will be a blizzard. There will be a cake. There will be a dance Friday night at the high school. There will be a total solar eclipse tomorrow. There will be an investigation. There will be consequences. There will be difficulties. There will be improvements. There will be many restrictions. There will be milk and cookies. There will be new opportunities. There will be no compromise. There will be no exceptions. There will be no more problems. There will be no school tomorrow. There will be other chances. There will be other deals. There will be other opportunities. There will be snow tomorrow. There will be some surprises. There will be tough competition. There won't be a choice. There won't be a next time. There won't be any more lessons. There won't be any more problems. There won't be any need for that. There won't be any need to do that. There won't be any surprises. There won't be anything left. There won't be enough food for everyone. There won't be enough water for everyone. There won't be so many people there.